Testing? Can everybody hear me okay? All right, let's go ahead and get this thing started. All right, how many people are awake? All right, that's a good start. We'll start there. All right, so we're gonna talk about a wonderful story today. It's gonna be lights, fitness, and a portal. It's really talking about a bond between our service portal product and IoT. You can think of it as kind of Beauty and the Beast, if you're into Disney reference there. Depending on if you're an engineer or not, either the platforms is the beast or the beauty and vice versa. So how many engineers do we have? All right, I'll go with the platform is the beauty and the UI is the beast. So we'll start there. All right, so what I'm hoping to kind of talk about today are really three big things. It's gonna be more of an introduction. We do have other lab breakouts that I definitely encourage you to attend around IoT and integrating with it. But I want to kind of go through the basics of what is IoT, kind of set the groundwork for what we're going to talk about today. Talk a little bit about why it's important to companies, what's the industry look like going forward. And I'm going to flirt with fire a little bit and try a couple of live demos. So we'll see how those go. They should work, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So let me ask this next question, I guess. How many people know what IoT is? All right. How many people have actually integrated with IoT APIs in an application? All right. Okay, so a little bit less of you. So hopefully you'll have a little bit better idea of how you can potentially do that after this talk, and maybe even try it out for yourselves. So let's start with the first one. What is the Internet of Things? Oh, never mind. Let me talk about myself first. All right, so my name is Alap Patel. I'm a product manager for the Service Portal product. I've been building kind of consumer experiences for over 10 years. I've been with ServiceNow for a little bit over a year, about a year and a half at this point, working on the Service Portal product. So I've been part of some of the features that you've seen delivered, either part of Kingston or coming up in London. Things such as search faceting, so allowing search filters for your customers to find what they're looking for faster. Page meta tags for SEO optimization for your public pages and portals. And a bunch of other smaller things, but probably those are some of the bigger things. Really kind of what I'm focused on now is really platform improvements. Again, taking feedback from you guys and really kind of prioritizing that and looking to deliver more key features in future releases, whether that's aligning with platform features that already exist, implementing new ways to create widgets and configurations and things like that for widgets from a configuration standpoint. So a bunch of these little things and big things that you guys have asked for are kind of what we're working through right now. Now, to the definition. What is IoT? This is a little bit of a wordy slide. I'll read through it. I know I'm not supposed to read through it, but I'll read through it real quick, just so we have the groundwork of kind of how I see it, and you can kind of formulate your own thoughts on it. So I just pulled this from Wikipedia. So the Internet of Things is a network of physical devices, vehicles, home appliances, and other items embedded with electronics, software, sensors, actuators, and connectivity, which enables these objects to connect and exchange data. That's really kind of the core piece of it. Each thing is uniquely identifiable through its embedded computing system, but is able to interoperate within the existing internet infrastructure. So there's not really any new protocols or not new connectivity things you need to think about. It's really they're using the existing infrastructure and protocols and security methods that are out there. And I like this particular definition. Why it resonated with me is it's not really specifying so specifically what is considered and what is not considered IoT. There's lots of questions around, hey, is my laptop an IoT device? Is my phone an IoT device? Is my home assistant an IoT device? For me personally, I kind of consider all of those things to be IoT devices. They connect, they exchange data, they can either perform an action or send data somewhere. I like it just because to me the Internet of Things is just that. It's an internet of all things, not just some specific things that maybe serve a specific purpose. So, with that in mind, I kind of have my baby up here in my new introduction to IoT when I was introduced to it. And those are kind of some of the questions that I had and kind of some of the debates that went on, or what is an IoT device, right? So you kind of have your common ones like your Nest thermostats, GPS trackers, the smart lights, a Fitbit, that resonate pretty well with everyone. So then there's other kind of arenas of IoT, which is, like I said, desktop computers, smart TVs, tablets, smartphones, home assistants that are in some sense hubs for your IoT environment, but is it really IoT? So I kind of pose a question for you to kind of ponder about it and think about, like, what do you think is IoT? How do you, formulate that in your own mind? Really, for me, as I said, it's like, for me, it's if it's connected, if it can connect to the internet, can exchange data, for me, all of these things are IoT devices. All right. So now when we talk about IoT, a lot of people just think about the device themselves, the hard physical thing that you look at. But IoT is really more than that, right? The device by itself is not what empowers or creates the power behind IoT. It's really the system behind it. And the system behind it is, to me, 4 different things. One piece is the hardware, obviously. It's sensors, actuators, a way to understand or collect information from the environment. It's also a way to perform actions, right? So it's not just about collecting data and sending data, but it's also something that could be stimulated, such as a smart light, or such as let's say a irrigation system. Let's say it's super hot outside, your grass is dying, and you have a sensor that says, hey, my grass needs more moisture. Well, it can say, okay, you can have a system that stimulates it, and it starts watering your lawn for you, right, for example. So that's really kind of the hardware piece of it. Connectivity, as I mentioned a little bit, is really, again, using the existing infrastructure, security mechanisms, protocols. There's not really a whole new infrastructure that needs to be there for IoT devices. It's really they're using the existing capabilities. But connectivity is kind of that piece, again, as we said in the definition before, is about that exchange of data. So this is really important. So you'll see all of this data in devices, and IoT systems typically compose of a cloud somewhere. Because if you really want to create these powerful experiences, it's not just one device, it's potentially many devices. And what system really controls that information or those workflows for those different devices? So typically connectivity also leads to some form of, hey, devices have data, they'll store them in the cloud, and then you can derive meaning or insight from that information. Which leads me to kind of my third bubble there, which is software. So software is really, I think of it as kind of the brains or the intelligence or the workflows that you would build to be able to understand the information coming in and potentially take actions, right? So software is really, okay, well, I have my Fitbit here. So let's say, there's Fitbit, and I'm running around, walking, it's monitoring my heart, potentially not this one, but the more advanced ones. They're potentially monitoring your heart rate. They're sending all this data to a cloud, right? And at some point, you have to be able to analyze that data. You have to be able to say, analytics is a part of that software to say, okay, what are the trends coming in? What is the data telling me? And if the data is telling me X or Y, go perform another action, right? So we'll walk into that a little bit more when I do one of my demos. But the example I kind of think about in my head is, let's say you wake up in the morning, right? Your alarm goes off, it's woke you up. Let's say it's a smart alarm. So you hit the snooze button. All right, it knows you're going back to bed, nothing's gonna happen. But now it goes off again, and you say, okay, I'm gonna turn it off and get up. Well, now let's say you have a smart shower. It knows to turn on the water for you at 80 degrees because that's what you like. And you're like, okay, great. I don't even have to think about turning on the water or turning it on and waiting for 2 minutes because it takes 2 minutes for my plumbing system to heat that water up or for the hot water to come through. Now you've entered your bathroom and your coffee maker knows that, hey, you like your cup of coffee and it's decaf, and it takes you, let's say, 5 minutes to typically take a shower. So by the time you walk out, get ready, go into the kitchen, your coffee's waiting for you, right? These are all kinds of little, I would say, manual things that you do on a daily basis, and sometimes you forget. You say, oh shoot, I forgot to warm my coffee, I'm going to work without coffee. These types of devices can use that data, analyze that data, and make those experiences more seamless, more just kind of second nature in my mind. So that's really kind of the software piece where it really comes in and uses that data to understand either behaviors or information and do other things. And then the fourth part of that is user interface. Obviously, us as humans and people, we definitely have preferences. We have unique things that we like. Nest thermostats, for example. Maybe I like my house to be at 72 degrees. I'm going to use Bob here. I don't know your real name, sorry. Okay. Sir, what's your name? Manzel. And what do you like your house temperature at typically? 23 degrees. Okay, he likes to be really cold. So he likes it at 23 degrees. I may like it at 72 degrees. Oh, Celsius. All right. So close. All right, I'm not going to claim to be a smart man and try and translate that to degrees here. But you can kind of get the sense of it's really about that personalization. It's really about that customization. I talked about Fitbit. You can configure what your step goals are and how do you want the device to cater to you or manage that device potentially. So that's where user interface really comes into it. So really, these 4 pieces or pillars in my mind make up kind of an IoT system. And now as I kind of talked about, hey, I had one device talking to another device, now you have multiple IoT systems that interact with each other in that sense, right? So really that's when I talk about IoT, it's really about the system of IoT, not just the device. And I think that's important to know. All right, now that we've gone through the hard part of it, let's talk about some fun facts. April 9th. Anybody looking to buy an IoT device? Nobody wants to buy an IoT device, okay. Anybody picture way in the future you're going to buy an IoT device? All right, yeah, thank you for humoring me. All right, April 9th, it is the official IoT day. So there's an actual day, there's called IoT Day. I was going to say, if you've ever thought about buying something or need an excuse to buy an IoT device, that might be a day you would consider buying it on. This last April 9th was actually the second official IoT day. So maybe on the third one, if you ever feel that itch, you'll have an excuse to go buy a new Fitbit or a new smart home assistant, or maybe a new car that has IoT in it, I don't know. All right, the next one is the first IoT device. When do you think the first IoT device was created? What year? Somebody throw one out. 80s. 83. Anybody else? You guys are pretty close. All right, so it was 1982. And the first IoT device was actually a Coke vending machine. It was created by Carnegie Mellon, and it did 2 specific things. One, tracked inventory to see when the inventory got low within the machine itself. And the second thing was temperature. How cold is the product that's in the vending machine? And is it at the ideal temperature or not? So those are the 2 main things that they tracked with that. So that's kind of a cool little, although I'm a Pepsi fan, I guess the Coke vending machine got that one. Most popular use of IoT. So the most popular one tends to be, I would say probably home usage. It's typically your smart locks, your smart home assistants, your smart thermostats, things like that is kind of the most popular area of IoT at the moment. And then you can see some inroads to different applications. So one of them is smart clothing. So things that are kind of being looked at are smart clothing. What they detect are, what's your heart rate while you're exercising? If you're running, what do your strides look like? Potentially take that information to a coach that can then maybe guide you like, hey, maybe you're not running in the best, with the best technique, and they can give you guides and tips and things like that. Another one is a smart mirror. So this one's interesting. It actually, as you look into the mirror over time, it will track the wrinkles in your face. So if you have that popular face cream you're using, 'cause I can see mine's working very well, it will actually, you can kind of see, hey, is this wrinkle-free cream working well? Or is another product working well for me? So there's a smart mirror that will actually track that for you, as well as play music in case you need that while you're checking your wrinkles. And survey says, so of people surveyed through a Forbes survey, 57% of folks believe that their IoT devices save them time. 45% believe it saves them money, and ultimately 72% believe it makes them feel safer. And to me, this kind of resonates with, again, what are the most popular devices, right? Smart locks, temperature devices, security systems. Kind of, since the home is kind of the more popular area right now, it makes sense that that's how people perceive it, and that's why they're purchasing those products and why they find value in them. Okay, those are the end of my fun facts. Now, going to move on to why is it important for companies. Really, there's, in my mind, 2 big reasons why I believe companies find it important. And it's either saving money or receiving money. And they both have their own specific use cases around those. So the first one, when I say saving money, it's really about how do we streamline operations? How do we streamline our supply chain? How do we reduce excess wastage? And with IoT devices, you can now intricately track all of that entire journey, really, is from creation, from materials that need to be used, from supply chain, like, where do these things get shipped out? What are the tracking of the products going to stores? So you can really use that information to now do a much better job streamlining and creating efficiencies throughout your supply chain or throughout your organization to ultimately save the company money. The second one, when I say getting money or receiving money, is really about, as you see the emergence of IoT, it's really creating these products, right? Creating these products is an entire revenue stream. I talked about a smart mirror that measures your wrinkles, or home IoT devices like a Nest and things like this. Like, they're now generating revenue for companies as they're investing in this technology and building it out. So those are really kind of the two big streams. And really what I get excited about, or what I'd love to see as we talk about ultimately ServiceNow working for you and the employee experiences, is I would love to see how that even moves further, where it's not just revenue specific, but it's also how do we impact the employee experience, for example. I'll go into a conference room and I have to set up a video call with a colleague of mine. How long does that take you typically to set up? It never works right the first time. You have to jiggle with it a little bit. The call doesn't connect properly. Well, what if that was a smart video system and it could kind of set all that up knowing you had a meeting, so you're saving those 15 minutes or those 10 minutes for every video meeting that you're having. Think of how much of productivity that could potentially unlock. So I think there's things like that from an employee experience perspective that would be amazing to look at and see how that could be even further made more effective, more efficient, more just a better overall experience in how you do your work and get that work done. So I wanted to quickly just talk through some of the market research and kind of where it's seen to be expanded. Again, this is kind of from a Forbes survey. You can search online and kind of find this information pretty easily. We have 54% of companies say they're fully integrated with IoT systems. We have 32% that have said we're not integrated at all yet. And then you have the last 13%, which are kind of started that journey, working towards integrating those systems, integrating with IoT within their business processes, and looking forward to kind of that transformation. Some of the market predictions is that the solutions market is going to be $6 trillion by 2021. So it's another reason why companies find it impactful or want to create products around it. It's a big market, and there's never going to be one company or one product that's going to take over the entire market. There's a big pie there, right? The places it's seen to grow more rapidly are retail and healthcare. Retail, you can definitely see better consumer experiences, knowing where people are, knowing where they are based on the products that you have. For example, are they near the men's shirt line? Are they near women's shoes? Are they near some other product line that they can more effectively track and market towards? Healthcare, you can just see better connected experiences. Like, your doctor can now get that data when you're not, let's say, in their office, right? Like, you have heart monitors, you have diabetes devices that will ultimately inject insulin based on your insulin levels as you need them. It's really important that doctors now have that visibility to be able to see, like, okay, what happened throughout the day that maybe they can create a better diagnosis for you and ultimately a better outcome. You can also see it from hospitals, like inventory. If it goes from closets to floors to usage, like, what does that pattern look like? Can they derive insights from those patterns? So those are kind of the two big areas. You can see kind of trends around becoming more fragmented. As I said, more companies get into IoT devices and creation of them and creating those experiences. They're going to tend to have their own cloud, their own APIs. They don't tend to have a single platform that they're plugging into that you could simply just connect with. So as more companies create these devices and APIs, they're going to all be created differently. You have to understand them differently. They'll have different purposes. So they're going to continue to be fragmented somewhat in that way. And then likewise with IoT and data being sent all over the place, security is going to be another big one. How do we continue to maintain security and information and prevent abuse of that? Mobile is going to continue to evolve. Right now it's kind of a hub as you're walking around. I have my Fitbit, it syncs with my phone, that syncs with the cloud. Marketing, I talked a little bit about in terms of retail and just kind of knowing where you are and what you're near to have more intelligent marketing. And then really data consumption and advanced analytics, for me, kind of go hand in hand. And I talked a little bit about it when we talked about, I think, software in the IoT system, right? It's really, there's going to be now large volumes of data as you have all these IoT devices that are connected and sending data into a cloud, you're also going to have the analytics capabilities to be able to understand what that data is doing, again, gain those insights and be able to take actions from them. Now, obviously it's not easy. It's definitely tough with anything as you integrate. There's always challenges, right? So I thought I'd call out some of the challenges that have been seen as companies have tried to adopt and integrate with IoT systems. It's been said that nearly 75% of projects fail. And the main reasons are, it takes longer than expected. We don't have the expertise within our team or within our organization to be able to do the integration properly. We don't have the right set of data or enough data or the ability to ingest that data, store that data, whatever it might be. Integration across teams. So we don't have a single vision across multiple different teams and what solution or purpose this IoT system or integration is trying to solve. And the last one really kind of, to me, goes with the first one, which is budget overruns. And a lot of these kind of 5 things again, they kind of overlap, right? If it takes longer to complete, you may not have the right expertise on the team. If it takes longer to complete, your budget's going to blow up a little bit. If you don't have quality of data, again, it goes back to it's going to take longer to complete to figure out what data do you need. But the majority of business leaders still believe they've only begun to scratch the surface of what IoT can do for them in terms of their organization and in terms of their transformation. So even though it seems pretty daunting that, hey, it's really hard to do this, there is a lot of positivity and motivation and still engagement around trying to make these things work just because the value is perceived so great. Now, I went on the daunting arena, so I actually wanted to call out 3 companies or 3 agencies that have actually been successful and what it really means for them, right? So the first one was the New York State Power Authority. So they basically provide energy for New York. They have energy producing machines, and what they decided to do was use sensors and as part of their energy producing machines ultimately to monitor how are those machines doing, how quickly might they fail, kind of just what's going on with their machines to reduce downtime ultimately. Because the more they can produce power, the longer they can produce power, the more revenue they generate. What they were ultimately able to do with those sensors and analytics software is actually detect failures not an hour before they happen, not a day before they happen. They're actually able to predict failures weeks, potentially 1 to 2 weeks before they happen. So they're actually doing more proactive maintenance and reducing downtime and making sure that they can produce energy more effectively, more efficiently, and with less cost ultimately, right? The second one was the city of Houston. Now, the city of Houston had a large problem with leaky pipes. So throughout their system, they had leaky pipes, which ultimately was costing them 15 billion gallons of water every year, which is not any small chunk of change. But the challenge for them was, yeah, we know we have a problem, but where is it? How do we fix it? How do we determine, how do we ultimately reduce that loss, right? So they deployed sensors within their system, and they had smart water flow machines that they introduced into their systems that would ultimately detect things like water pressure, water flow. If water pressure is dropping in a certain area, that probably means that there's a leak or a block, or if pressure increases suddenly, there's a block, right? So now, again, they can kind of know information in near real time to figure out, oh, we have a problem, let's go take care of it now before it expands and becomes even a bigger problem, right? And last but not least, I'm sure we'll have a few of these as the conference goes on, is Johnnie Walker Whiskey. So kind of the previous 2 examples are more agency or government related. This is actually a consumer goods arena, so I thought I'd throw a little curveball in there to kind of get a different industry in there. But they've basically deployed smart sensor tags on their products, their bottles. And what they can do with those, they've actually got 2 different ways they're using these sensors. One is to, as I said, kind of streamline operations and reduce cost. But the other is actually to create a much better consumer experience. So from data that they've gotten, they know that their customers are typically doing searches for their product in bars, obviously. That's probably where their product is quite a bit. But even when you're in stores, they're doing searches to figure out what's the right one to buy. So they're a few feet from their product when they're doing these searches. And they really want to say, how can we help them? How can we create a better experience rather than them trying to search and figure out what's the right product for them? So using these sensors, they can connect to a customer's mobile phone using NFC, and they can actually detect whether a bottle has actually been opened or not. So what does that mean? That ultimately means they know, hey, if you're standing near the product and it hasn't been opened, they can push content to you that talks about their different lines of products. What is the benefits of a single malt whiskey? What are the tastes of it? What does it pair with well? Things like that. Or do you want a blended whiskey? Or is it a Highland or a Lowland? So they can actually talk more about their products and help you make a decision based on what you want and what you're looking for. The flip side of that is now when you open it, they can actually also now detect that you've opened the bottle. So now they can push you content of what's the best way to enjoy my glass of whiskey? Is it with a large rock? Is it with certain meal pairings? Is it with friends? Is it whatever it happens to be? They can now actually provide you content related to you open a bottle. What's the experience look like when you actually want to consume their product, right? And then, like I said, is again supply chain. Like they know when they've created the bottles, where is it getting shipped out? These sensor tags have locations. How long does it take to get from one place to another? So they've actually been able to deploy this and use it for multiple different use cases and reasons. All right. So those are kind of what I wanted you to kind of take away from what is IoT, as well as why are businesses and companies and customers interested in it. Now I'm going to dive into a demo, and I'm going to cross my fingers, and I hope this works well. All right, so actually let me describe it first. So this first demo is going to be kind of more of a one-way demo. The scenario I'm going to set up is the following. I'm an employee. Ergonomically speaking, it's not good to be at my desk for hours on end, sitting there staring at my screen. And I want to have a reminder to ultimately get up and move around every once in a while. So the way I've set this demo up is I have a service portal widget that I've created that is going to trigger ServiceNow Platform REST API that is ultimately going to call the Smart Light API to tell the Smart Light to change a certain color or give me some kind of visual notification that I need to get up and move around. So that's what I'm going to attempt. Whoops, and almost fall. All right. All right, so this is just a service portal page that I've created. This is actually the widget I'm gonna go for the demo here. And ultimately, I've just created a countdown widget to kind of simulate that, but really you could plug in other devices or do it in a different way. But just for demo purposes, I have a timer I created. Let's say I'm going to put in 10 seconds, and I'm going to start my timer. Oh, by the way, this is my smart light. Oh, and now it's not smart anymore. Hey, stop it. All right, and there we go. All right. And we're going to go 10 seconds, and let's see. All right, so you've said, okay, 10 seconds is long enough for me to go be focused, and then I want to get up, maybe grab my coffee, grab my drink, whatever it happens to be. And you hit your 10 seconds, and there you go. So now I have my smart light, it's turned red, I'm like, oh, it's red, I better go get my coffee. Or I better go run around or talk to my boss or whatever it might be. But that's kind of one example of just one way. This isn't actually saving any data in the cloud. This is strictly just through REST APIs. So when this timer hits, I'm calling the REST API. It's calling the light API, and it's triggering something. So this is all done through basically cloud APIs. So now, all right. So that was a pretty, oop, did I turn it off? I did. Okay. Hey, knock it off. All right, I'm going to turn it off. Is it going to work? Okay. All right, so we're off to a good start here on the demos. All right, so that's kind of a straightforward, simplistic demo, and I realize I'm not on the slides. All right. But like I said before, I think the power in IoT is not just kind of the one-way flow and just saying, hey, I can interact with one device. I think the long-term power in how you build the great experiences is really IoT systems talking to each other. So on that note, I am going to attempt doing it with multiple IoT devices. So I showed my nice Fitbit tracker here. So striving to meet your fitness goals. Let's see if we can get a little more enjoyment out of hitting our fitness goals. So in this demo, I have my fitness tracker here. as I said, that typically syncs to my phone. That's going to then transmit data to the Fitbit cloud. I have a ServiceNow instance set up via a scheduled job that's going to then pull that data from the cloud and save it to the ServiceNow instance. And now basically, there's two things that you can do. So one of it is going to be just an automated interaction. So once the data is pulled from the cloud, the ServiceNow platform, the scheduled job is going to do some basic logic to say, hey, have I hit my step goal or not? And if I have, then it's going to do an action, and we're going to see some handy-dandy stuff going on with the light. If I haven't, then it'll do nothing. But now there's another way of consumption as well. As I talked about, there's kind of the user interface. So really the service portal piece in this case is really kind of that visualization piece, which is what I think it will really work well for within an IoT kind of experience, right? Service portal is really built for a more engaging visualized experience, and that's kind of what I'm hoping to show with the demo here. So the data is going to be in the ServiceNow instance, but the service portal widget, all it's really doing is just pulling that data then and displaying it. So let's see what happens here. All right, so let's refresh this guy. All right, and I am going to, we're going to start off with this. I'll talk through this after the demo a little bit. I just want to show something before I kick this thing off and log in. Okay, here's where the minor detail comes in. Okay. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Where'd it go? All right. All right. So I have my Fitbit scheduled job, and I'm just going to kick this off. I'm going to give you I'm going to get the initial state of my Fitbit tracker here, just so you can see what it looks like currently. We'll give that a second. All right, awesome. All right, so the scheduled job, all I just did there was quickly is I hadn't sunk it with the Fitbit Cloud, so I just kind of did the initial the sync. So you'll see so far I have 3,011 steps. My goal is 10,000 steps. I'm not that ambitious, so you know what? Me and the gym, we're not really friends. I really am not a big fitness buff guy. 10,000 steps seems like a long way to go for me to achieve my nirvana. So as I talked about the user interface before, I'm going to take my handy-dandy phone, and I'm going to make that something that's more personalized for me. So where are we at here? 3011, maybe let's do 3655, oops. There we go. Let's say I want to make it 3665. Let's say 10 additional steps is my goal for the day. 3665. I'm going to set it. All right. So I'm going to go back over here. Oops. So I'm going to kick this guy off again. All right. So I'm just going to show you that I've updated my goals on my phone here, and you'll see now that it's updated here, right? So that scheduled job pulled my new goal from the Fitbit Cloud, stored it in my ServiceNow instance, and you can see what my new goal is. So in lieu of my new goal, I'm going to take my 10 steps, maybe a couple walks across this room, see if I can hit my goal here. Oh, this is hard work. It's going to be a long conference. All right. So I'm going to, again, you could do this via scheduled job and have this kick off every second if you want to, but just to not slam the data sets and for the purpose of the demo, I'm just going to kick this off on demand. And hopefully when that kicks off, and if it works, I'm looking there because I expect it to do something at some point. And clearly, it is not. Oh, so close. Maybe it didn't go yet. Let's try this one more time. Anything? No? Oh, had to be on this one. Let's see if this updated. No, it didn't update, so it didn't get kicked off yet. Okay. 3665. Oh, haha, I didn't sync it with my phone yet. My fault. All right, so let's go back. Okay, now let's try it. Okay, now 75% of my demo has failed. All right, let's try that one more time. All right. Maybe? Maybe not? Come on. No. All right, let's see if it actually ran. No, why didn't it run? 3679. 3679. Dude. Okay, that clearly didn't work very well. All right, imagine that was a rainbow color of lights. All right, so 75%. Dang it, I worked on that for so long. All right. We'll try that again at some other point. All right, so the intention was that ultimately, once my Fitbit vibrated, but ultimately the intention was, this last time we saw it turn red, I was gonna have it turn into a bunch of radio colors so it's more like a strobe light and we could all have a party, but clearly it's not time to party. But you can see that as that happens, the idea is ultimately that again, scheduled job will run. This is kind of a simplistic view of it where it's just the number of steps and what your goal is, but you could obviously create a ton more engaging and interactive experiences like a graph that's my 7-day trend chart based on data that I've pulled in from the cloud, and so forth. So I got half of it to work. At least you saw the data come in from the cloud once, and I don't know what happened the next time. But so you could definitely see how this could be a visualization engine for the data that comes in. It could be the ServiceNow platform, which is really more of an integration with IoT systems from a ServiceNow perspective at this point. But from a Service Portal perspective, again, you can connect with any APIs that you want from Service Portal and really use it as a visualization for your IoT experiences that you want to build for either your customers, yourself, or for anyone else. And is my clicker not working anymore either? Oh, I have to be on a slide deck to click. All right, there we go. All right. So, yeah, so you can kind of see how that workflow works out and how you can automate some of that data that's coming in if you had analytics tools and have it do certain things for you based on that data. And then you can see how that usual visualization configuration piece kind of can also be part of that experience. So, as I said at the beginning, just want to reiterate, what are my top 3 takeaways that I hope you take away from this conversation? Number 1, if you didn't know what IoT was, hopefully you know what IoT is, but it sounded like most of you knew what it was, but maybe hopefully you got a little more to think about. 2, why is it important for companies? Hopefully I've given you some good examples around why companies want to adopt IoT and why they find it beneficial within the workplace as well as for their management. And the third, and not least, hopefully you got a good idea of, how does Service Portal, how can ServiceNow kind of be part of that integration, part of that experience to help make them easier, faster to build, and so forth. And that is it for me. So I will take any and all questions you have.
Is there an IoT application for ServiceNow today?
Let's get the...
Where is it?
Right here? Sorry, I'll get you in just a second.
I'll just speak up.
Okay.
Is there simple code that we can download examples of what you showed?
I don't know if they have the code anywhere. Actually, I was going to show, maybe I can walk through it real quick. I will actually go through my, again, I'll try and I'll go through it pretty quick right now, but there is an actual lab where you can get hands-on and actually do it yourself, which I think will be very helpful. So I definitely encourage you to look that up and attend. But I can give you a quick kind of just a shot of what I did in terms of scheduled jobs, Fitbit data. All right. Oh, did it cut off? They cut me off. Okay, so if you're interested, maybe you can just come up after and I can quickly walk you through it. Again, you'll definitely get a much probably better opportunity to do it yourselves in the lab that comes up. There was a question over here somewhere.
Yeah. No, is there an IoT application that's part of ServiceNow today?
There's not currently. Right now, it's more of an integration partner, really, if you will, in terms of integrating with an IoT platform or IoT clouds. And that's kind of what the capabilities at this point are. There are I would say teams that are kind of looking into what that overall strategy may look like in the future. So I can't really speak to that right now so much. But I mean, the capabilities that are there right now is more of an integration partner. Any others? Oh, go ahead.
There's a lot of problems with security in IoT as it is today.
Okay. For example, the doors that got bricked during a big update, or just light bulbs with built-in web servers open for everyone.
Yeah.
Could this be a problem if you integrate it to ServiceNow?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately the lowest common denominator always wins, right? So if the device itself is not secure, the ServiceNow platform isn't going to help with that. They will help once the data is within ServiceNow. I mean, we have all of our normal security, in place to prevent those types of things, but we can't necessarily, obviously it's very important to make sure that there's auth as part of the devices that you use, like OAuth. Important to know what protocols do they use to transmit data, how do you connect and transmit data. But that's going to be on a per IoT device probably type of basis. I don't think, service, kind of being the integrator is really, we're integrating into a platform, so it ultimately depends on how secure is that platform that you're integrating into. Was there another one over here somewhere? Back there?
Do you have any recommendations about the architecture of all these things? Should ServiceNow be the hub, or should we have an intermediate hub to terminate all your IoT devices? Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah. So as I said before, our recommendation right now is, or at least our view right now, is ServiceNow itself is not an IoT platform. It is an integrator into possibly an IoT platform. Because, and the reason I say that is, as I talked about, one of the things is large data, large sets of analytics and software analytics. And while those are things we're, looking into, how do we improve the platform to incorporate some of those things, we're not, it doesn't currently support that type of stuff. So it's, our kind of perspective right now is that it's more of an integration play into IoT platforms and IoT systems. But then in long term, we're looking at, is there an opportunity for ServiceNow to become more involved in that integration? Yeah, go ahead.
So if an enterprise is considering ServiceNow as part of the workflow, they have to buy specific licenses to develop the integration that you just demoed?
No, I mean, this was, I just used the normal ServiceNow platform. Yeah, REST message APIs. Service portal, which is free with every installation. So there should be no new licenses or costs required to do that. Got one more? Go ahead. Yeah.
Just piggybacking off of the security bit, is there a way to kind of sandbox in this integration only works with this table and they can't access any other table?
I mean, Once you get into ServiceNow, it's really up to how you build it. So an IoT device by itself isn't going to have access to any of ServiceNow's information or data. So we don't typically, unless you've enabled it yourselves, we don't typically send data out to IoT clouds. It's more of a pull-in type of mechanism. So once it's in the IoT, or like let's say you pulled in data, then it's really up to you how you build it. If you want to give it access to 1 table, 2 tables, 3 tables, it's up to how you've ultimately implemented your solution to that. So inherently, you don't really need to say, no, you don't have, this doesn't have access to a table. It's just whether you want it, whether you've implemented that way or not. Yeah.
So one of the most obvious uses for IoT devices with ServiceNow is, I think, event management. It's for sensors or the pipes you mentioned, the deep pipes. So what is the best way to integrate that with event management, since these devices cannot send web service calls to ServiceNow? Is there any plan to integrate that, for example, event management with Nagios, and Nagios should try to figure out what the problem is?
That's a tough question to answer entirely. I don't think there's plans to necessarily integrate with, let's say, There's not plans to have data pushed into the ServiceNow platform necessarily. Again, for the same reasons, right? You could pull in a huge set of data, but then that's going to kill the instance potentially, right? And then 2, you don't have the analytic software to analyze that data, right? So you could dump a whole bunch of data in there, but now you don't. How do you get insights to it, right? So that's why I think our perspective and our view right now, as I said, is more of, hey, it's not the platform to be able to crunch numbers and store large volumes of big data. It's the platform to get your workflows done and take action, for example. Like, okay, I've analyzed this data, I have this insight, I want it to go through a workflow. ServiceNow works very well, and then we're very well poised to do that, as you guys have set up with your existing workflows and ticketing systems and whatnot. So that's kind of where I think it works well in the fold right now. And as I said, we're looking at ways of how do we introduce, like, one of the APIs was like, oh, we have time series data now. Okay, well, if you have time series data, that works well for some of these types of use cases. But then we need to have the data capacity for it. Where do you store the data? Is it in a ServiceNow instance, or is it in a data instance, or something different, right? We don't have the answers to that yet, so I can't really say, like, hey, this is the way to go. But those are actively things that we are looking at to see how do we further, make the platform available for these types of use cases. Any more? All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate you guys taking the time, and feel free.